Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Chicks, One Show, where we break down and discuss one currently airing show an episode a week. This week we are doing the final episode of the first season of Outlander. This is the show that started it all, for us anyway. So why don't we just jump right in? There's a whole lot to talk about. A lot of things happened wrapping up the season and launching next year. So let's get into to Ransom a Man's Soul was the name of the film.
Yeah. I mean, should we just jump in? Do you even really want like a little synopsis recap, or
Was there a lot? I mean, it sort of happened very quickly where, they busted in and rescued Jamie, and then we spent the entire episode trying to figure out what
happened. Yeah.
Which meant they doled out the torture really.
It was almost torture to watch.
Well, and I think it was interesting. This is the first time that an episode has actually carried with it the mature audience's card.
Yeah. Like that was a very I watched it on demand, and I think you did as well. And that, for mature audience card was up for like a good minute before the episode even started. I was like, damn, what's gonna happen? And then shit did happen. So
it very much did happen.
Yeah. But yeah, so the episode opens with a naked Blackjack and a naked Jamie in Jamie's luxury dungeon suite.
Mm-hmm.
And
Blackjack's hair did nothing for me. It was creeping me out the whole time.
Yeah, like that was like the first thing, as we all know, and Tricia did ask earlier, I did watch the episode with my father. Like I watch every Outlander and Game of Thrones episode with my dad. And I was like, oh man, look at Blackjack working that long hair. And my dad, and then he just gets up and like full frontal Blackjack.
Mm-hmm.
BJ was showing the BJ. So it was very little BJ. But like, I guess Tobias doesn't get enough credit. Like everyone talks about how great Kait is and how great Sam is, but like Tobias is awesome as both Frank.
Extremely bad.
Yeah, Frank and Blackjack. Like he just like. So we open with that, and it's pretty much automatic that a stampede of cattle with great hairdos burst into the prison, and Jamie
house.
Yeah, and Jamie is saved by. Is it the whole gang this time?
It's everybody but Claire. Claire doesn't go in this time.
Yeah, Claire, and I don't think did Willie go in?
I don't know. I think it might have just been Angus and.
I think Willie was looking to see how the Redcoats reacted.
Yeah, he was like a lookout.
Yeah. And it was also great to watch how the Redcoats every morning they get up and they play the drums for King George, and then they raise the flag and they're everyone's la 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 in the courtyard, and then stampede. It was kind of fun. I thought that was funny.
I did too. That was very funny. And they sort of leave it ambiguous-ish as to how badly Blackjack was hurt. There's a puddle of blood under his head, and in the book Claire basically thinks that Blackjack is dead.
Yeah. I was going to ask you because it was a question that I had while we were watching. As we know, I have not read the books, and Tricia's read the books. And I read in someone's review that Myrta was apparently, Bearded Bessie, my fave, Myrta, was apparently gave Blackjack what he deserved. So I thought maybe there'd be a little battle between BJ and Bearded Bestie. Mm-mm. And then I was like, is that just it? And then my dad has a friend who read the books, and she told my dad that Blackjack's death is so gruesome that he gets what he deserves. And I'm like, if that's how he dies? I mean,
in the book, at least in the first book, Claire goes with them on the raid.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees him get trampled by the cows.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, he's dead. That's interesting, seeing as I know the date of his death.
I was just going to say, shouldn't she know?
Married or has children. So she honestly thinks at this point that she may have just deleted her husband from existence.
Oh, okay. Because they don't really make that. I guess it's a little bit more present within the book. because Claire doesn't.
She actually makes mention of, oh crap, he's dead.
Yeah, because in the show you see him get trampled, you see blood, but that's pretty much it. Like, if I were Myrta, I would, like, take my sword and just stab the little bastard in the heart to make sure the deed was done. But, like, no one ever does that. They just leave the guy laying there.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm curious to find out if Blackjack is dead, because nothing was mentioned once we see the torture scenes between Blackjack and Jamie, but in present timeline, nothing else is mentioned about Blackjack besides what happened in the room. So you don't know. No one's like, oh, Blackjack, no one told Claire Blackjack got stabled. Or, yeah, so. I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Yes, we will.
But yeah, so Jamie gets rescued really fast. Well, not really fast, but in terms of the episode, fast.
Yeah, in terms of the episode, I was surprised it wasn't more of a build-up. I thought it was going to be like a build-up to, and then it would happen, but it wasn't. It was just, it happened, and then the rest of the episode was a series of interrogations and flashbacks to actual interrogations / rape scenes. Just a period of rape scenes.
A lot of rape scenes.
Yeah, the whole episode, I mean, I was surprised, and I kind of liked that the episode focused more on character and story than action.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, we expect finales to be sort of action-packed. Especially when they've had action in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I hate comparing Outlander to Game of Thrones, and I know everyone does it, but in the Game of Thrones structure, and I think kind of, well, you can't even compare this finale to the midpoint finale in 2014 of Outlander, is that usually the action happens within, like, the second to last episode, and then, like, the finale is kind of like, now what are we going to do with everything that happened in the previous episode? And that's how Game of Thrones usually does it, and that's how it was done in the second half of Outlander. So I wasn't too surprised. I think the episode was used to push the story forward, like, where do we go from here kind of point, which was interesting. It's interesting. And as you predicted, I wish it was a little bit more of a cliffhanger ending, but you did predict a Pretty Little Bow ending of season 1, and we did get a Pretty Little Bow ending.
I figured it was going to be a Pretty Little Bow ending just because it was going to be the end of the first book, and it does tie up the story, the current story, but it doesn't really revisit any of the ongoing issues, like her going back at all. If she's going to do it, what's going to happen? So yeah, that is what we got. So it's a launching point for next season and for the second book, which is Dragonfly and Amber. And it'll be interesting to see how they frame the next season. But this episode, so as we said, there was a lot of really difficult to watch scenes, and I'm not even sure, like, how to talk about them, almost, because it's weird, and I thought the performances were really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Really disturbing, and I found myself in the middle of the episode just really wanting to go back and watch the first episode so I could get some Frank.
Yeah. I mean, Blackjack is hard to watch.
So hard to watch.
I mean, I've had discussions with other TV fans, and they're like, who do we think is the most awful television villain? And I'm sorry, Game of Thrones people, but I honestly think Blackjack, Jack Randall, could be the worst television villain of all time. Like, I don't care. Joffrey ain't got shit on Blackjack. Like, I'm just saying. He really is an awful human being.
He really, really is.
Disturbingly awful. I don't know how I'll ever look at Frank the same way.
It's gonna be really tough, and it was. But yeah, I was seriously watching it. About halfway through the episode, I was like, I need Frank back, because my brain just can't deal with the actor in both roles, and especially because I love Frank.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about the show, is that everyone pretty much loves Frank, and then you automatically meet Blackjack, and you're like, how is this possible?
Right, and we sort of go through the same thing and we've said this before, we sort of go through the same thing that Claire does, where like we meet him and we're like, oh, he's fine.
Yeah.
Not so fine. And then he just steadily gets worse until just, I hate him to a point where I just hate him.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to describe, like, yeah.
Like, there are bad characters that you love to hate, and then there are characters you just hate.
Yeah. Like, and he's definitely... I think the moment when he had that poor young man kick Claire in the gut was when we were just like, okay, I don't think, I think he's a bad person.
Yeah, and then I don't really look forward to Blackjack anymore.
And it just increasingly got worse. I think before we get into the awful things that happen to Jamie, the gang rescues Jamie. Jamie's kind of delusional. And they're not sure if he was drugged or poisoned or something, or someone tried to like heal him, so they don't know. He doesn't want to be touched by anyone, and they run off to a it's not like a convent, monastery with the they're not monks.
They're monks.
They are monks. Okay, I call them like friars. I don't know. And they And they take a sanctuary within this monastery. And Claire needs to, of course, Claire goes into healer mode, and she knows that she needs to set Jamie's hand or he'll be crippled. What did you say?
I said, ah.
Yeah, so we see all the grossness of Claire fixing something, which we haven't seen in a very long time, of like the actual, like Claire being a nurse. So, and Jamie is just like in this extremely dark place. He literally, like, wants to die.
Several times. He asks Blackjack to do it, and then he asks Willie to do it. Or he asks Murtaugh to do it, and then he asks Willie to do it.
Yeah. There were some great Willie moments in this episode. I love him so much. But, yeah, so Jamie, and then, like, I don't know, Monk brother. I don't even know. Monk brother.
Monk brother.
What's called Monk brother is helping Claire, and it's like, listen, like you can fix his hand all you want, but this dude is troubled. I don't know what you're gonna do to fix his soul. And like Jamie won't talk, and when he does talk, he talks in Gaelic to Murtaugh, so we're not really like, just like Claire, we don't know what the hell he's saying. And then finally we start getting these flashbacks to what actually happened to Jamie with Blackjack in the prison.
Yes. And we should also mention that during Claire's like counsel with the monk, he also takes her confession, and during that time she tells him what happened.
Yeah, that's a little bit later.
It's like they're halfway through the episode.
Yeah. So Claire is, she doesn't know, Jamie wants to die. He's pretty much like said, well, you could fix me all you want, but I'll never be the same again. Blah, 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 depressing, which makes sense. He did go through something extremely awful. So Claire just doesn't know what to do. And Murtaugh tells her pretty much like, well, if he doesn't, see a changeover, then I'm going to kill him. It was pretty much what he said. He goes, I'm not going to let him just live miserably or starve. Like, he's not eating, so everyone's afraid he's going to starve himself to death. Mm-hmm. And Murtaugh doesn't think that's an honorable way for Jamie to die after everything Jamie's done. So Murtaugh would kill him, and he pretty much told Claire that. And Claire goes and she's praying, and then she confesses her whole entire story to head honcho Monk, not brother Monk, but the guy Monk in charge. And yet again, another person that just sits there and believes everything Claire says. And it's just like, okay, well, if you forgive yourself, then God forgives you, and just leaves.
Well, that is one of the things about confession, is that if you are confessing to a priest or a monk or whoever is taking your confession, you are bound by the sacrament to tell the truth. So they are sort of obligated to believe you.
Yeah, but still, they're showing, because it's a long story. And, his facial, there wasn't, I would be doing facial expressions, and he's just like, okay. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nope, I totally believe. It's a miracle. It's amazing. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, he actually says it is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
So then I guess it does feel good for Claire to get that off, another person down. So she tells. And so then now she's really determined. She talks to Brother Monk, and he's like, well, someone has to go into the darkness with
him, yeah.
With him. And it's such a shame because I don't know what Blackjack did with the lavender, but I guess now lavender is like Jamie's trigger, and I guess he'll never be able to smell lavender again.
Yeah,
oil, Blackjack.
Lavender oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings us to talking about the awkwardness of the torture flashback scenes.
Yeah. I mean, there's, first of all, like, you mentioned that Claire, like, the darkness thing, but how she, like, they fight.
Oh, yeah. She physically fights him.
Which was actually kind of awesome to see her do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it was interesting that she basically forced him to relive that crap. Because she knows what happened.
Yeah. I mean,
him to talk about it.
I think from what I understood, and I think what they wanted you to understand as a viewer was, the previous episode, everyone knew what was going to happen. Blackjack was going to rape Jamie. Claire knew it. Jamie knew it. Myrta probably knew it. At this point, Angus, Willie, and Rupert know probably what happened to Jamie in the prison, the way they found him and everything. What upsets Jamie and what we find out once Claire starts to fight Jamie to, figure out what happened was that Blackjack was able to manipulate Jamie into thinking he was Claire. So he actually Jamie submits himself to Blackjack.
Yeah.
And that's what upsets Jamie the most. And then also at one point, Blackjack doesn't really force Jamie because Jamie does it himself, but Jamie ends up branding himself with with Blackjack's seal. Yeah. So now he has the JB seal on his body. So it's a constant reminder. And I think that's what upset Jamie the most, is that Blackjack was able to break him and Blackjack knew that he broke Jamie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, how can I go on from that point? So when, Claire has to get all this information out of Jamie. But during that, we're seeing all this happen between Jamie and Blackjack, and there is a lot of rape.
Just a lot. Like, I figured there would be at least one scene, yeah, but there was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. And there was that whole, I mean, Jamie's biggest issue is that he was broken and that he not only submitted, but he enjoyed it a little.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, that's what he says that, it wasn't even that Blackjack raped him. Like, at one point he says it wasn't that Blackjack raped me, he made love to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's because Blackjack was able to, Jamie was very weak. He lost a lot of blood. His hand is completely smashed up when he was in prison. And he was able to use whatever he made with that lavender and kind of create a delusion within Jamie's mind. And Blackjack played into it. And at one point, Jamie called Blackjack Claire, and it was weird, and Blackjack took down his hair to pretend like he was Claire. It was odd.
It was extremely weird and awkward, and you were watching it with your dad, and my dad was in the next room, and I hit pause.
I'm just yeah, and the whole time I'm like, oh my God, I just couldn't get over how awful of a human being he was. Blackjack.
So, I mean, I thought they did a good job with the depiction, yeah, because you didn't see too much.
No, it wasn't.
It played off faces more than anything.
Yeah, I think it was I feel like it was more emotionally damaging than I wasn't I don't know how to articulate exactly what I should say about it, because it wasn't the most gruesome thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You could just tell that it was emotionally devastating to Jamie.
Yeah.
And it was something that was extremely uncomfortable to watch, and it was extremely uncomfortable. I think you just felt for Jamie so much that you've never felt. Like, Jamie isn't necessarily someone that we've, as we said, he doesn't have much, we never thought he had flaws before, so it wasn't like, oh, he was just kind of like this happy-go-lucky guy that like just always saved Claire, and now like you see him complete, like almost 180 from the first half of the season, where like so much shit has happened to this kid in the past couple
the first
episodes.
half of the season, it was just like he was just too perfect. And at this point, I don't know that we've necessarily established flaws for him, but they've abused him enough, certainly, that
I mean, I still think Jamie is one of the most perfect characters ever written, but I do think they have damaged him quite a lot now.
Yeah,
I still think he's perfect. Yeah, I still think he's perfect, but he's damaged.
Yeah, and hopefully that will make for a more interesting season 2, Jamie. But not that. Oh, and I feel like this needs to come up because just because of the timing. Not that I think that rape is necessarily the right way to advance a character's story. I mean, it is written into the book. It is what happens. So it was sort of expected, and I wasn't expecting it to be so depicted. Like, so, like we said, there was a lot in just like 3 scenes or something, spaced out throughout the whole episode. It wasn't like it was one moment, and that's something that you never actually see. It happens, but you never see it again because it's Claire's perspective, so you only see the aftermath, and the aftermath is bad enough. So that was another thing that they added to the show, and it's interesting to me that it happened the week after all the fallout from Game of Thrones. If you don't know, because you don't watch Game of Thrones and you apparently don't hang out on the internet, a couple weeks ago on the newest episode of Game of Thrones, or the second newest, you know what I mean, a couple weeks ago on Game of Thrones, there was an episode depicting, at the very end, one of the characters, Sansa Stark, is raped on her wedding night. And it's awful and gross, and it flipped a lot of people out. Like, a lot of people flipped out over it because it's Game of Thrones doing it again. And there's a lot of fallout from it. Kate talked about it briefly in the most recent episode of The Word from Westeros, so you can watch that there. But we're not really prepared to talk about that. I just thought it was interesting that this happened 1 week later, and we knew it was happening. The media had already seen the episode, and if you read the book, you knew it was going to happen. So it's not like this was unexpected, and it was interesting that no one talked about it.
Yeah, like for the Game of Thrones plotline was something that was not, for the past couple weeks, people have been building up to the final 2 episodes of Outlander are going to, are going to be a little shocking for audience members. Whereas the Game of Thrones situation was kind of a surprise to both series viewers as well as readers of the book, because the Sansa Stark storyline changed. The show changed her storyline drastically from the book. Whereas a little bit for Outlander, we were a little bit more prepared, I guess. They were kind of warning us the past 3 weeks about this happening. But I never thought it was going to be as involved as it was within this final episode. With that being said, we did mention previously that the scenes did focus a lot more on the emotional damage as well as more of the facial actions of the 2 characters. And I think it was also the pacing of the episode, where it was very rape heavy because it was spread very much throughout the episode. It's also interesting, and I mentioned this before we went on to the show, this episode of Outlander was directed by a woman and the source material was written by a woman, whereas Game of Thrones season 5, all episodes have been directed by males. The source material was written by George R. R. Martin, who's a male, and the show is both adapted by 2 males. So I think that's why, and we're also talking about, two different, it was a girl being raped on Game of Thrones, and now it's a man being raped on Outlander. And male rape hasn't really been too much depicted within television, so I don't think it's something that people necessarily talk about as much as female rape. But rape is rape, people. So those are just little interesting tidbits to the situation.
There's something to be said about agency. In the case of the Sansa situation, a lot of people were talking about how the plot line took the agency they'd been building for her for this season and took it away and gave it to Theon, one of the other characters who was forced to watch, and that there's a concern that this is going to be a character moment for him, not for her.
Yes.
Which is a legitimate complaint. And in the case of Jaime's rape, it's all fallout for him. I mean, there's fallout for Claire too, but it's all about his character arc. And I don't know how much that's going to play into anything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily know. And I don't know the answer. I mean, we're not going to come up with like any answers, and in this short, brief broadcast. But I don't know if there was another option. But But all I'm saying is that no one brought it up. No one's talked about it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a double standard. No one's talked about it. No one was talking about it when they decided to adapt the book. And the same thing came with Game of Thrones. Like, it's not like we didn't know that storyline was coming, because they said they were combining Sansa's storyline with another character.
Yes.
And this happens to that character. And everyone was just hoping that they weren't going to do it. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to compare, but it's easy to compare the two situations. The stories are so different. The character development is so different. Sansa Stark is someone that we've watched grow for the past 4.5 seasons, and no one wants anything bad to happen to Sansa Stark. Whereas, we haven't spent as much time with Jaime, but of course no one wants Jaime to be raped.
And of course he's a big dude.
Yeah. And I mean, no one would think that, if someone told me in episode 1 of Outlander that by the finale Jaime would be being raped, I would be like, you're full of shit. But yeah, so it's just an interesting conversation that is not really being had, considering how much conversation was had about the Game of Thrones Sansa Stark storyline.
Yes.
It's just something that we wanted.
And it was a lot to put into the finale.
Yeah.
And not even like plot wise, it was just assault on my senses.
Yeah.
For how uncomfortable the episode was and how difficult it was to watch. But it's not necessarily something that we're not used to seeing on Outlander. They tend to push it a little bit with what you're able to watch. And they've sort of been building that up over the season. But it does bring us to the end of the episode. Once Claire herself has to break Jaime down and get him to tell her everything that happened. And when he finally does, they have, this really intense, kind of beautiful moment where, she says it's going to be okay, basically.
There's also, there was a very Shakespearean element to the moment right before he kind of confesses, where she goes, well, if you die, then I'm going to die with you, and the reason I traveled here was to be with you, and I believe that. And she's trying her hardest to get Jaime to realize how much she loves him and how much she believes in them as a couple. And there was that beautiful moment, and it's very, everyone was like talking about how much this beautiful scene between the two, where she says, if you're going to die, then I'm going to die right here with you. So it was very kind of almost Romeo and Juliet.
Really not something to base your love story on, guys.
I know. But, I mean, they did love each other.
Yeah, but no.
So she's able to pull Jaime out from the darkness. And he reveals his branding. And he decides that they're going to continue on, and being the fucking badass that Jaime Fraser is, has Myrta cut the marking, the brand out of his body.
While he's totally conscious and just biting
While
on
he's conscious, just biting on a freaking belt. And Murta just goes, and I was like, ew, like I was like, that's disgusting. So
But
yeah,
at the same time, kind of quick and easy when you compare it to his sister's labor.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's so true. And then like Murta takes it and just flings the flesh into the fire, and I'm like, okay.
And I was like, that's gotta smell good, burning flesh and blood.
So
Then they decide they're gonna go to France.
yeah, I guess because now Jamie's even more in danger because he has fled this prison.
In a prison break that possibly killed Blackjack.
Yeah. And probably other redcoats because it was a stampede.
Yes. You mean they didn't target the stampede on one person?
Yeah, it was just for Blackjack. So they now have to flee to France, which is an interesting thing historically because the Bonnie Prince is in France. He has fled Scotland since the redcoats have come over. The man that Dougal and all the Jacobites are fighting for. I think is it Prince Charles?
It's Prince Charles is currently on the throne, isn't Stuart?
Stuart's the last name. So like a Scottish royal would be like Stuart. I think King George right now is the King of England.
Oh, that makes sense. The King of England.
I'm pretty sure that it's Charles Stuart.
Yes.
Who the Scots think should be the rightful, which would be James the First's son?
I don't know. You're the one who knows all this stuff. Talk to me about communism.
I'm pretty sure. So he has the Stuarts and the Scotland and France have had this a very odd relationship throughout history. Mary, Queen of Scots' first husband was the King of France, and the French and English have been at war for years within years in this timeline. So for them to go to France it's going to be interesting historically speaking. And now
is France allied with Scotland at this point in some way?
I mean, I think they always are because France still at this point, the thing is France is a Catholic country. Scotland is majority Catholic at this point. Right now they're probably in present time they're half and half, and France would like to see a Catholic king or queen back on the English throne, but France is always trying to actually take over the English throne. So it's always a mucky situation. When France,
I would think they would think if Stuart was on the throne, they'd have an easier time with like negotiations and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So they are going to Paris. Not Paris. They're going to France.
Mm-hmm.
Paris is all of France, right?
Yeah.
Just like Boston is all of Massachusetts. Yeah. They're going to France. They're going to France. They have to figure out who to stay with. There are some Mackenzies in the area. There are Frasers, and then of course they say, "Oh, Claire, wasn't that where you were going in the first place?" And she's like, "Really, my husband, they probably wouldn't like this very much."
Yeah. So they decide to go to France. Yeah.
They decide to go to France. They're going to hang out with Jamie and Murtaugh's cousin, who's a merchant.
Yes.
Of some sort. And they take off on a boat.
They go off on a boat, and Murta, of course, goes with them.
Of course.
And there's this great moment where, like, I guess he's like, well, Jamie's still like, delusional, so he just gets like on a boat, and then Murta and Claire are saying their goodbyes to Willie, Rupert, and Angus. And this makes me sad because I guess we're not going to see Rupert and Angus and Willie and Dougal and Colin has just disappeared, and like all of our Scottish friends.
We probably will see them next season, but not until much later.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh no. So Willie does like this really sweet, like proper goodbye to Claire. And like he kisses her hand and he's like, it's been such a pleasure, blah, blah. And then like Rupert and Angus are like rolling their eyes next to Willie. And it's so cute. And then I think Angus asks to say goodbye to Claire.
Angus asks to give her a kiss goodbye.
So then he goes in and he kisses her on the lips and then like goes to second base.
He grabs her boobs as he's kissing her on the lips, and she's just like, "What is happening?"
And then Rupert does a sweet goodbye, and he kisses her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Angus is the only dick that like looks like an asshole. So they like wave goodbye. Yeah, so they say goodbye, and Bearda, Bestie, Claire, and Jamie board the ship. And I guess they're still kind of in shallow waters. You know, this is my Pirates of the Caribbean terminology now, because I don't really know much about boats. So they're still in shallow waters. They haven't hit the high seas. So Claire is throwing up, and Jamie comes
after
over.
having passed out earlier in the episode.
Yeah, she passed. Well, no,
female character passes out and/or throws up.
Well, she threw up in the episode prior, and I said something about it, and you said, oh, well, it's because she just found out her husband almost died. And I'm like, okay. So she threw up, then she threw up again in this episode, then she fainted, and then she threw up again. And Jamie, who's starting to get a little bit of his Jamie mojo back, comes over and he goes, oh, I thought it would, like, starts, like, making jokes about her throwing up. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Claire, like, pretty much says she wants to change the future and try to get the Bonnie Prince back on the throne while they're in France, because he's over there and they're going there, so hey, why not? It can't be that hard to meet a prince.
Basically, they want to stop the Jacobite rebellion. They want to do something to make it so that never happens, so that people don't die.
Yeah.
So Claire's completely given up on not affecting things.
Yeah, and, like, I don't know if this is what you were saying, where maybe now she thinks, well, if Blackjack's dead, then what's the point? Frank's dead, so I might as well just change the future. I don't know if that, like, was like their way of, like, kind of foreshadowing her insight, or if she is like 175% now devoted to this life that she just doesn't care.
I think maybe it's a combination that she's lost to, in her mind anyway, she's lost her tether to the future.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really see a point in going back, and so much has happened that she thinks maybe I should just help the people that are here.
Yeah.
And part of that is to stop the rebellion in whatever way they can. And it's, I don't know, it's interesting. She obviously hates the Redcoats at this point, which is interesting, seeing as she is English. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the whole time travel thing and whether or not you should take it upon yourself to completely affect history.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, apparently the Scottish people aren't too worried about it because, as we find out, Galus was sent there to help with the rebellion. So clearly it's something that happens. They send people back in time. But
Galus wasn't sent there.
I thought it was like she was like on a mission.
No, she decides there's other stuff that you haven't learned yet.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, Galus doesn't knowingly travel back in time to help the Jacobites. I think she ends up in Scotland and decides, oh, this thing that I can do.
Oh, okay, whatever. So now Claire, because I guess they talk about their future, and like Claire's like, well, you know, we can't, like, James like, oh, we won't be in France forever, we'll come back to Scotland. And she's like why? I mean, like, this whole place is gonna like pretty much burn in a couple years because of this rebellion that everyone's starting. And then she's like, well, what if we change it? And then he's like, are you serious? And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, by the way, BT dubs, I'm Pregos.
Dun-dun-dun!
And then Jamie was just like, what? And he was like,
that face, that's where it ends, just on Jamie's face.
No, that would be an ending. He was like, I thought you couldn't have children. And then it turns out Frank was the one that's equipment didn't work because Claire apparently can. And she's like, oh, and are you happy? And then Jamie does this like cute thing again where he's like, I never thought I could feel happiness or something like that again. So not only are they traveling on a ship, which is making everyone throw up, but Claire is now pregnant, and they're traveling to France. So, and then Murta joins them because he has no one else to hang out with, and it's like the three of them. They have like this great, panning shot of the boat sailing away as they sail on to their new future. And it's like, it's a very pretty ending. I wish there was
it's a nice ending, and it sets it up pretty well for the next season. I'm interested to see how they're going to frame the next season. Those of you who have read the second book know what I mean. So yes, whether or not they pick up exactly where they left off, or if they bookend it the same way, excuse me, they did in the book. That would be my choice personally, but that's me. So we will find out, but we won't find out until next year.
Till 2016, everyone. It's a very long boat ride.
It's a very long boat ride.
Very long boat ride to France.
That long.
So
yes, but I like season 1 a lot.
Yeah, they are currently filming. So if you little sneak peeks want to check out stuff, there are, hashtag Outlander BTS photos out there on the interwebs. But it's not like much, really. They're still in the same outfits that they were in the season finale.
The boat ride's just ending.
Yeah, the boat ride's literally just ending. So
they actually left the actors on the boat.
Yeah.
To meet us in France.
But so that's pretty. Yeah, it was interesting.
That was season 1 of Outlander, and I liked it.
I mean, I really liked the show. Clearly,
I liked it more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe how different it is from like when I'm looking at it now, like thinking about it, like from the first episode to this episode, how much has happened within the 16 episode season. It's just like mind-boggling how much like Claire and Jamie and how much we don't know what hell Frank's doing is like going on. So I'm interested to see what happens with some of our like supporting characters that we haven't really seen, like what the hell's Doogie doing, or like where has Colum gone. But I'm interested to see if Blackjack's alive.
There was stuff they did in the book that they didn't do in the show that I was surprised about with Dougal. In the show, you just super hate Dougal.
I mean, I don't hate Dougal.
Well, Dougal is not a good guy at this point.
Yeah, like he's not. Yeah, I mean, like he's not a great. He's like, he's like one of those characters. Like
advantage of Claire, and like there's all this stuff in the book. There was actually a moment where Claire sort of forgives him for all this stuff because he explains that like there was this a situation that I don't think they mentioned at all in the show where like Jamie coming back from France. Dougal was there, and he was there to make sure that other people didn't kill him. Yeah. But Jamie thought that he was there to kill him. It was very weird and confusing, but Claire and Dougal sort of come to an understanding, and Dougal is actually one of the people involved in helping to save Jamie.
Whereas in the show, he's not really give a fuck.
Yeah.
He has no fucks to give.
No fucks to give. And they also changed stuff with like Dougal and Gaelus's kid.
Yeah.
And weird. So, I mean, it doesn't affect large portions of the future, I don't think, but it's interesting what they decided to leave out.
I mean, I don't think it affects the story. I think it affects how Dougal's portrayed, probably. Yeah.
It affects the story slightly in the whole thing with his kid, but it's
for another day.
That might not even come up.
Yeah. We'll find out. But yeah, so...
I'm pretty sure that the kid burned.
As far as we know.
As far as we are aware.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's it.
That's it. That was the end. No more Outlander for a while.
Sing me a song.
I love that song.
It's a great song.
It's a great song. All right, so that was the end of Outlander Season 1. We liked it. It was great. We'll be back with Outlander Season 2 next year. In the meantime...
What?
We're going to be taking a slightly weird schedule on the show. We're not entirely certain what that schedule is going to be.
Because we've been so regular with this one.
But weird schedule in the sense that it won't be every week. It'll be every few weeks. We are going to be doing X-Files recaps.
Oh my God.
So we'll be doing season 1. Probably not next week, but the week after, we'll be doing a season 1 thing. I am a giant X-Files nerd.
She is.
I have so much X-Files stuff. I got this Calvin and Hobbes tattoo partly because of the X-Files. Just I'm all about the X-Files. Kate, on the other hand, has never actually watched it. So we were going to do newbie nostalgia combo recaps on All Geeks to Me, but we decided just to do it as a continuation of Two Chicks One Show since it's the same people and there's nothing else going on television. And the new series will start, the 6-episode season will start in January. So we are going to try to do all 9 seasons plus the movies. They're important, trust me,
Yeah.
by that point. So we will update you on when the next episode will be online. You can follow us at allgeek2me.net, at Tricia Ennis, and at Kate Calabro, hashtag 2chicks1show. That's the end of this episode, I think. Anything else we need to talk about?
No.
No? All right. Well, then we will see you in a few weeks. So long.